and welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. Y'all, it's been an interesting journey over the last 9 months of going live every day and speaking with different guests and honestly learning so much about different ways our bodies and minds and souls and spirits work and operate. And the main goal of the Knowing Show is to cultivate the human intelligence, the human being, and who we are, especially in this world of AI where everyone is fixated on artificial intelligence. Really coming to know who we are and whose we are and why we are. And so on the Knowing Show, we will have topics and discussions that I may not even necessarily agree wholeheartedly with. And yet it's for the purpose of exploration and curiosity that we listen. And in listening, that alone, that art of listening cultivates in us an ability to take in new information that could very well be counter to something that we already had a preconceived notion about. Listen to it, take it in, weigh it, and then decide, okay, this is going to go out. I'm going to, expel this, or I'm actually going to allow it to come further in. I think of the mind as kind of a battlefield where we let ideas in, where we let concepts in, and then we battle them out. We battle them out with our existing belief system. We battle them out with our, even our habits. Like, okay, if I was to take in this information, given how I live in this other area of my life, will I actually be able to integrate that? Will that fit well into my current life and into who I want to be? So we intentionally engage with thoughts, concepts, ideas that are not even unusual, but that just may not be what you think, and they're not what I think at times. And that's the goal. That's the goal, is that we engage in the arena with our mind, soul, spirit, and self. And so when we think of knowing and the human being, there's 4 key intelligences that we talk about here on the show, which is intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and physical intelligence. And if we're over indexed in one intelligence or another, we're going to be off balance and potentially detrimentally so, where we cannot actually engage this other intelligence because we are overly cultivated in the other. So our goal is to grow with each one kind of an equal measure. Now, there will be seasons and times where we cultivate one over another, but man, it is so important that in order to be a well-balanced whole, bringing our whole self into an environment, into our families, into our businesses, we have learned the art of the arena and the cultivation of each there. So this is why we're here. This is why we're doing the show this morning. I'm so glad you're joining us. We are going to do a review of some of the preceding lessons leading up to today's lesson. And today, actually, over the next 10 lessons or so, we actually have review lessons, which frankly, I get really excited about because I know we need them. And in each review, I think this is our 3rd review so far, where we'll read through 2 lessons today and just kind of do a deep dive. And in the review, it's just a reminder, the goal is to retrain. We're in the arena this morning. The goal is to retrain and reprogram some of the old narratives that were developed not even with and by our conscious consent, but rather that were developed for us or handed to us, modeled for us, that we just took in. We even developed these scripts and narratives by way of just our own experiences. We experienced something in the past, so now we have this logical deduction, if this, then that, and we don't take into consideration, well, that was 20 years ago. The internet has significantly changed. How much more so have I? I'm now an adult and I am in charge of my life. I think Wayne said this last night. It's teaching our body that we are safe when maybe in the past we weren't, or maybe in the past we didn't have the autonomy that we have today. But if we're still operating like we're in danger, or we're still operating like we're not in the driver's seat of our life, we are going to continue to live this life where we think of ourselves as a victim and act accordingly, which is even worse. So it's time that we take we take back and reclaim our seat, which is in the driver's seat. But with that comes the acknowledgement and even the surrender of, okay, I can't blame anybody else anymore, because once I take my proper place back, once I actually reclaim the driver's seat, I can't point the finger because I'm the one driving. And so there is a cost to benefit ratio that we have to take into consideration. Is it worth sitting in the driver's seat of our own life to be the one dictating our course based on what we're called to be and do and who we were created to be in the first place? Is that worth it? Or is it worth it actually to let somebody else, the old narratives, the old scripts and programs run so that I can continue to sit in the passenger seat, maybe even in the back seat, and point the finger? And only you can make that decision. But with that, we're going to go ahead and do a review. Lesson 111. So happy 111th day of the year. We are reviewing lessons 91 and 92 today. And we'll just take a quick pause in between each. And frankly, I might even go back to the original lesson and just read through parts of them because these lessons were so important. All right, so for morning and evening review, lesson 91, miracles are seen in light. I cannot see in darkness. Let the light of holiness and truth light up my mind and let me see the innocence within. That's beautiful. Lesson 92, miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. I see through strength, the gift of God to me. My weakness is the dark his gift dispels by giving me his strength to take its place. On the hour, every day today, miracles are seen in light, and on the half hour, miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. And you know what, y'all? I realized I failed to read the introduction to this review section. So let me go ahead and read that. So this is the introduction to the next 10 days. Our next review begins today. We will review 2 recent lessons every day for 10 successive days of practicing. We will observe a special format for these practice periods that you are urged to follow as closely as you can. We understand, of course, that it may be impossible for you to undertake what is suggested here as optimal each day and every hour of the day. Learning will not be hampered when you miss a practice period because it is impossible at the appointed time. Nor is it necessary that you make excessive efforts to be sure that you catch up in terms of numbers. Rituals are not our aim and would defeat our goal. But learning would be hampered when you skip a practice period because you are unwilling to devote the time to it that you are asked to give. Do not deceive yourself in this. Unwillingness can be most carefully concealed behind a cloak of situations you cannot control. Learn to distinguish situations that are poorly suited for your practices from those that you establish to uphold a camouflage for your unwillingness. These practice periods that you have lost because you did not want to do them for whatever reason should be done as soon as you have changed your mind about your goal. You are unwilling to cooperate in practicing salvation only if it interferes with goals you hold more dear. When you withdraw the value given them, allow your practice periods to be replaced for your litanies to them. They gave you nothing, but your practicing can offer everything to you. And so accept their offering and be at peace. The format you should use for these reviews is this: devote 5 minutes twice a day, or longer if you prefer to considering the thoughts that are assigned. Read over the idea and comments that are written down for each day's exercise, and then begin to think about them while letting your mind relate to them to your needs, your seeming problems, and all your concerns. Place the ideas within your mind and let it use them as it chooses. Give it faith that it will use them wisely, being helpful in its decision by the one who gave the thoughts to you. What can you trust but what is in your mind? Have faith. Have faith in these reviews. The means the Holy Spirit uses will not fail. The wisdom of your mind will come to your assistance. Give direction at the outset, then lean back in quiet faith and let the mind deploy the thoughts you gave as they were given you for it to use. You have been given them in perfect trust, in perfect confidence that you would use them well, in perfect faith that you would see their messages and use them for yourself. Offer them to your mind in the same trust and confidence and faith. It will not fail. It is the Holy Spirit's chosen means for your salvation. Since it is his trust, his means must surely merit yours as well. We emphasize the benefits to you if you devote the first 5 minutes of the day to your reviews and also the last 5 minutes of your waking day to them. If this cannot be done, at least try to divide them so you undertake one in the morning and then one in the hour before you sleep. The exercises to be done throughout the day are equally important and perhaps of even greater value. You have been inclined to practice only at appointed times and then go your way to other things without applying what you learned to them. As a result, you have gained little reinforcement and have not given your learning a fair chance to prove how great are its potential gifts to you. Here is another chance to use it well. In these reviews, we stress the need to let your learning not lie idly by between your longer practice periods. Attempt to give your daily 2 ideas a brief but serious review each hour. Use one on the hour and the other on the half hour later. You need not give more than but a moment to each one. Repeat it and allow your mind to rest a little in silence and in peace. Then turn to other things, but try to keep the thought with you and let it serve to help you keep your peace throughout the day as well. If you are shaken, think of it again. These practice periods are planned to help you form the habit of applying what you learn each day to everything you do. Do not repeat the thought and then lay it down. Its usefulness is limitless to you, and it is meant to serve you in all ways, all times and places, and whenever you need help in any kind. Try then to take it with you in the business of the day and make it holy, worthy of God's Son, acceptable to God and to yourself. Each day's review assignments will conclude with a restatement of the thought to use each hour and then be applied on each half hour as well. Forget them not. This second chance with each of these ideas will bring such large advances that we come from these reviews with learning gains so great we will continue on more solid ground, with firmer footsteps and with stronger faith. Do not forget how little you have learned. Do not forget how much you can learn now. Do not forget your Father's need of you as you review these thoughts he gave to you. So just going back to today's lesson, review 91, miracles are seen in light. And then 92, miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. Y'all, I'm reminded yesterday evening we had an interesting conversation that caused our YouTube chat to go a little bit in an uproar, which is good. And I actually think that that's right in so many ways, that we are not constantly hearing the same things we agree with, and that there is a bit of contention. You know, I've actually learned only in the last year and a half the benefit of contending. I grew up in such a docile home where it was, I think peace was a little bit misconstrued, where peace was the ideal, but it wasn't the peace that came alongside truth. It was peace in lieu of truth. And so there was a sacrifice. There was an exchange being done in terms of seeking and pursuing peace at the cost of reality. And so it wasn't significant, but it was enough to, I learned, how we were talking at the beginning of this show, so much of what we're doing every single morning and every evening too is reprogramming. It's learning new ways of thinking. It's taking the old programs that run us on a subconscious level and pulling them out and examining them. It's like heightening our own consciousness. It's learning to be aware, which is actually the first step of emotional intelligence. It's the capacity to be aware and then understand, control, and convey one's own emotions. And so that first half of emotional intelligence starts with being aware. So in these knowing shows, we take the programs and thoughts and like pull them out of our subconscious and pull them into consciousness and examine them. And we say, is that who I want to be? Is that actually aiding me on into the life and into the purpose that is mine? And so apart from doing that, we are living on autopilot. We're living on default with just kind of the natural inclination that we may have, rather than stopping and kind of like jolting ourselves awake. Someone said this last week, which I just loved. He said the trance of thought. And it's so true. We can almost find ourselves in this trance of just doing the same thing every single day, just out of habit. rather than out of calling. And so I'm actually going to be doing a presentation later this morning around knowing to a mastermind group. And we're going to be diving into this. And some of the questions that they've submitted in advance have a lot to do with how do I reprogram? How do I change my mindset? How do I get a better one? How do I kind of elevate my mind? And y'all, it's really cool because what we talk about here is something for all of us to put into practice. It's not some high affluent PhD program that we have to participate in. No, it's just the simple practice of repeating and closing our eyes and actually taking a moment to pause and consider this new narrative that we're introducing to ourselves. Even last night, this woman, Lane Kennedy, came on, and this is the conversation that caused a little bit of dissension because she used the word meditation. And there's a lot hung up around meditation. And so we actually went back to kind of the drawing board of what actually is it and what does it actually mean apart from the woo, new age type of thoughts, because meditation has been around for millennia in so many ways. And actually, even for those of us and, who are in different faiths and different beliefs, even in the Bible, it talks about meditation. So there's something that has been, we were talking about it kind of almost like as a branding problem, where we have these associations in our minds that cause us to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The same goes for church. Church has a really bad ring to it for some folks. And so are we going to throw out everything that church has to offer because we've had bad apples? Same thing with meditation. Are we going to throw out the practice that has been around for thousands of years because of new age thinking? And so this is where it's so important for us to get to the integrity. And even honestly, this line for today's lesson 91, miracles are seen in light. I cannot see in darkness. Let the light of holiness and truth light up my mind. And let me see the innocence within. Y'all, for most everything, there is innocence. There is something beautiful and something to pull forth. There's like a gem. There's a diamond in the rough, even if it's colored by other things that we don't like. So anytime we put a blanket statement on anyone or anything and say, I will not engage because of a bad experience or because of my own preconceptions, we're potentially really isolating ourselves from something that we could really that could be of benefit to us, much less so bring healing to us, that could also allow for us to connect with other people if we were to be led by curiosity. And also God, what do you think about that? Rather than fear of I'm afraid of what's actually going to happen. And what's interesting, y'all, is that for a lot of the folks that I'll talk to around knowing and doing these knowing retreats and knowing intensives, and I've experienced this for myself, there's a fear of our own selves, of will I become corrupted? What will I find when I really engage with me? And so really so much of the time we abstain from these practices or from these places, thinking about church, from church to meditation and everything in between. There's a lot of fear there. Fear over hurt, fear over control, fear over indoctrination. There's a lot of fear. And so if we were to be able to adjust the dials of the lens through which we see the world, kind of like when you go to the optometrist and place your face against the dials and they adjust them. If we could adjust our dials and see the world and the landscape from, again, church all the way to meditation and everything in between, and ask God, man, how do you see this? I want to see with your eyes. Then, man, we really can mine the gold, because there is gold in every person. And I believe in most environments, even something that was intended for evil, we can mine the good, because that is how big and how good God is, that he can use something intended for evil for good. And so in order for us to, the reason why I even brought up last night in the first place is because this concept of actually breathing deeply, the way that it works with our minds is that with shallow breath, it heightens our cortisol levels, which is effectively our stress. And in the shallow breathing, and I learned this from a dear friend of mine, which just blew my mind, and it makes so much sense. In the shallow breathing, it cuts off our short-term memory loss. This is why we get kind of thrown back into traumatic moments, and we feel our body, our sympathetic nervous system goes through the roof and freaks out, activating, fight, flight, fear, or fawn. And so our 4Fs get activated, our sympathetic system gets turned on, and then we're freaking out because our short-term memory has been effectively cut off because of our breath. So when we talk about this concept of bringing new patterns and new ways of thinking into our mind, we do that in concert with breath. Because when you breathe deeply, when you actually get from the diaphragm, the deep breath below, that actually helps activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So there's kind of like two systems. There's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. I kind of think of it as like the sympathetic is the fearful one, and the parasympathetic is the one that brings us back into peace. So para with peace and sympathetic with fear. And so those two systems are effectively, we have the power to control which one is on alert and which one's activated. And so much of our control is through breath, which is just so cool that God made our bodies this freaking awesome that we have the ability to calm ourselves down and self-regulate. But we're not taught that. Kids aren't taught how to self-soothe. And wouldn't that be the most powerful thing, is to actually learn to soothe ourselves and bring ourselves back into a place of calm. And in the calm, we can introduce a new way of thinking. So this word for today, miracles are seen in light. And then the second word, miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. Those two thoughts, and together for the next 10 days, taking the time to take a deep breath as we say these phrases, because y'all, it is so incredibly important that we recognize that we have this power. The very power of God is in us, and we have access to it. But for so long as we live as a victim, we cannot activate the light that is, we're called to be the light of the world. And for so long as we're not activating that power, we're not walking in the fullness of who we can be and who we're called to be in the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over here into the chat. Thank you all so much for joining. I am going to log into YouTube. Helito, hello. I'm glad to see you on YouTube. Hello, or Instagram, I'm sorry. Hello, my friend. All right, I am jumping in on YouTube now. Oh, had my audio on. Okay, let me jump in here. All right. I'm going to remove this, dear friend. All right. Mega dude, hello. Good morning, Steven. Good morning. Man in the hat. Good morning. Naria. Good morning. Deuces, hello. Oh, I'm so glad you have a new smartphone. Nice. Well, I'm glad you're here. The Fact Hub, good morning. Finding Secrets, life is a journey. Don't be brainwashed into following someone else's book. I'm curious, Finding Secrets, where have you found benefit in terms of community? Where have you actually benefited from sharing and also receiving? I'm so grateful we get to do life together, y'all, that we don't have to do life alone, that we don't have to figure it all out by ourselves on our own, that we actually get to share and we get to learn from each other's experiences. Experiences is one of our greatest assets, man. It's so, so, so true. Sammy, I'm so glad to see you. Oh, God bless your voice. Sammy only just prayed for you and your voice, and we absolutely want you to know Sammy is really struggling, but he is here and praying for you and family. Sammy, I'm so glad. I'm so, so, so glad to see your name on here. For those of you who don't know, Sammy is a dear friend of mine and the Knowing Show. He reached out actually when we first started really kind of ramping up on YouTube about 3 months ago. And it was the date of when he had his accident and has been suffering. Sammy, I think that's fair to say. It's been a hard 2 years being, I don't even like saying being a quadriplegic because that's not who you are. but that is the environment in which you find yourselves. And so I just am thinking about you a lot, you and your nurses, and praying for you, my friend. Reality, good morning. Vulnerability expert, good morning. All right, I'm just scrolling. Quality Customs, good morning. Thank you for joining. Nika, good morning. Brian, Sammy says, please know my neuro and ortho all say due to my neck being so badly broken and now my now diagnosis and condition with being a C2 complete quadriplegic and ventilator dependent helps to tell. I'm so sorry, my friend. I really, really am. And Sammy, I would love to know, if you're getting any more clear on if what's the purpose, if there's any meaning in this, if there's any redemption. We were just talking about how God takes something that was intended for evil and uses it for good. So I'm curious if there's anything for you in this, anything to bring comfort and care to other people. I'm thinking about another friend on the Knowing Show, Bradley, who he's an amputee, and he is really caring for other people who have suffered from a loss of a limb or some part of their body. And so I'm curious if there's something in this suffering. Y'all, so much of the time, if we can solve our own problem, we can then turn that into something that is a solution for others. So even if solving your own problem is somehow finding joy or creating a community for other folks who are in this similar situation, I think that there's so much potential for healing once we turn our gaze outward. If we tend to ourselves and really ensure that we're doing okay, and then turn that gaze outward and who else needs love? So I know Nicole says, what can we possibly say to Sammy? Wow. I'm with you. Hi, Nicole. I'm glad to see you. But Sammy, we love you and we're with you. And I'd love to know, if there's anything we can do to really support you. If you want to, I don't know. My mind's racing, but please let us know how we can love you. Man in the Hat saying, using any practice outside of the power of the Spirit shows a lack of faith to God. I'm curious about what you're referring to. Retro Rocket, good morning. I'm glad to see you. Atunara, I don't know what that means, a Tao partner. Alexa, good morning. Snee Perk. I love that. What's something I can do every morning to feel ready for the day? I struggle with feeling ready to do something. I think, to be honest with you, it kind of actually, Tunara, you said no thinking, just intuition. And I actually think that both are so, so critical. This is why we actually engage with, and I'm actually a breaker of legs. We're kind of addressing your question right now about what this show is about. It's about engaging and learning how to pull forth and activate every part of us, which is our intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, spiritual and physical intelligence. So often we're taught only just the intellect. We're overdeveloped in that one regard. And then we don't know how to tap into, to your point, Atunara, the intuition. But then if we're only being led by how we're feeling, then that's actually, we're probably not going to feel like doing much. To your point, Sneeperk, where we might wake up and not feel like doing the very thing which we're supposed to do for the day. So it's learning how to be led and also be in control. It's like that duality. Intuition, the Latin root of it is intuere, which means to be taught from within. So to be led from within, but then also activating our IQ in so many ways and saying, no, but this is how I choose to live. And I'm going to take responsibility for how I show up. I'm going to take responsibility to activate even when I don't feel like it, because of the power of choice. So Viktor Frankl, he gave two of my very favorite quotes. He says between stimulus and response is choice. So every morning we have the stimulus of our alarm going off. What am I going to choose? And that is probably one of the most important decisions right there at the very, very beginning. Breaker of Flag says, discipline is key to accomplishing anything in life. And it's so incredibly true. Discipline, and Jocko Willink says this, discipline equates to freedom. And so if we're willing to allow for discipline to work in concert with intuition, man, that is powerful. But it's not the overdevelopment of one or the other. It's allowing for both to be in concert together. And then when spirit comes in, it's like, okay, well, God, who have you called me to be, to kind of be the hierarchical order of, I've got discipline and intuition predicated on who I was called to be in the first place, who I was created to be. Why am I here? And so having that spiritual insight and revelation provides the purpose and the why in so many ways. And then with the physical intelligence, it's like, okay, what are the practices physically that I need to engage in to ensure that I can wake up, activate discipline, activate intuition under the hierarchy of a why that motivates us forward. And then the practices could very well be going to bed early. You know, I set my alarm for 4 a.m. this morning, went to bed at 8. Well, I was chatting with a friend last night, so went to bed at 9. But that was the discipline of going to bed early so that I could wake up at 4, so that I'd be prepared for this show, so that I could do a presentation after this, and then have work meetings for the rest of the day. So it's working though in a hierarchy. Yeah, I agree. It's a flow. It really, really is. So it's working with both in concert together. But I will say, I must jump off. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me today. This reminder of the lessons for today that we read, miracles are seen in light. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. And y'all, there really is something about being willing to see through the lens of God, because otherwise we are going to have our lens and our perspective, the way that we see the world, just be colored by the past. So therefore, we're actually not seeing the present reality for what it is. We're seeing it through biased, subjective perspective, colored through our lens, and we're not able to see the reality of what is here, right now. And so this is the reason why we must, and it's so important that we must take the time to readjust our dials and recenter under that hierarchy of, okay, what's the ultimate why that I've been called to? Why am I here? Powered by discipline and intuition, and then propelled by those physical habits. John Vroman, I just saw you in the chat on Instagram, and you just made my morning. I'm so glad you're here. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. I will see you tonight. I will schedule it out on Restream. I think that we'll probably be going live around 6. Actually, you know what? Let me pull up my calendar just to make sure I can give you a real time. We're going to be going live at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. I think I'm going to go to an event later for a networking thing. So I will see you all soon. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon.